All right, what else? I'm just like rolling. I'm just like recording, rolling.
3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Mouthful with Marissa Pitts. Please take a moment to love, like, and subscribe right now. Today's guest on Mouthful is Greg Sidnam. He is the host of the Backcountry Vagabond, here to talk about his unique stories from living alone on a tiny island in the Sierra Nevada mountains. Yes, there are islands on that lake out there. That's why I was like, island? What? Let's go ahead and bring him in right now. There you are. Hello,
Hello, hello. How are you today?
I am awesome. Thank you so much for joining in. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so I have right here, let me just go ahead and put your name up there. Perfect. All right. So tell me about your podcast, the Backcountry, right? Like what's it about?
The Backcountry Vagabond is one of those things that just sort of hit me when I was developing an idea. I was turning 50, and when you reach that milestone, you look back on your life and you try to figure out what would you like to do that's going to make a splash, that's going to make an impact. And I really felt like I had underachieved up to this point. So I decided that I was going to go ahead and hike the John Muir Trail, and I was going to do this in a certain number of days, and it was going to be so wonderful. And then I realized how much I hate the hiking. I really hate it.
So with you on that one.
But what I love and what I was raised with was the camping. I love getting out there and just living in the woods. So that's what I decided to do. I decided to amend my little trip and keep it into the Western Yosemite wilderness and a little bit of the immigrant wilderness and just go out there and camp. And it was a life-altering event for me. I went out and I spent 30 days by myself with just the contents of my backpack without any sort of resupply, and just surviving on that and the fish that I caught and the berries that I picked and the peas, the wild things that I was able to scrounge up and forage. And it was really great. And I ended up loving it so much that I made it my thesis project for my MFA. And from that has grown my podcast, my YouTube channel, The Backcountry Vagabond. And I'm really happy with where it has developed. I wish I was getting more attention, don't we all? But
yes.
When I think back to when I was coming up with a concept, I'm really happy with what's developed, and I'm really proud of the product.
Yeah, I want to play this clip. So I have to say, like, I have been binging your clips because they are hilarious. So here's just this is just an intro. So those of you that are looking for it on YouTube.
Next, on the Backcountry Vagabond, there could be a fire roaring up the valley right now. Know how they say don't drink and boat? I'm boating drunk!
This is your Backcountry Vagabond, Greg Sidnam, inviting you to join me for a backcountry adventure.
Okay, I know in your little the bio in the YouTube channel, it says that you live out of the contents of your backpack with maybe a little bit of drinking and some marijuana smoking.
Yes, indeed.
Besides the essentials, because those two, I mean, I don't smoke anymore, but if I did, it'd be an essential. But I definitely partake in a drink, and I do pack a bottle of wine when I go. What are the other things that if I was going to go on a 30-day backpacking trip, or even just to say a weekend, this starts small. What would I need to pack in my backpack?
You'd want a tent of some sort. You'd want a tent. Now, we're talking traditional camping. We're not talking ultralight. We're not talking any of this other stuff. You'd want a tent. You'd want a sleeping bag. You'd want a bear can so that you can keep your food stuffs safe. So there are certain designed bear cans that you can go ahead and put in there. You want some clothing. You'd want perhaps a stove. I personally prefer to cook over an open fire, but something to cook. Then you'd want your food, and you'd want to break that down in individual packets so that you have exactly what you need, and minimizing your packaging so you're not hiking a whole bunch of extra stuff. And you could pretty much make it with just that. If you just wanted to go out and drive in your car to a campground and hike out a mile or two, you could pretty much make it with just that.
Okay. Awesome. And what got you into camping? You said you camped as a kid, so did your
Well,
parents
my
take you out,
my
or was
parents were big outdoors people. Now, my father was a big outdoors person and always left my mother in charge of setting up the camp, resulting in some tension that first day.
that?
But they would take us out a couple of times a year, myself and my three sisters, and we'd go out and spend a week in a campground. And by spending that week away from home, it was a little bit like going on a vacation to camp, or a vacation where you're going to be immersed in a different culture, because you meet different people that you've never met before from different parts of the world. You establish new relationships. It's a hugely rewarding thing. And as a child growing up, what a great exposure to what the world might be. But what I really loved was getting up in the morning and being in the woods, and then coming home for dinner 10 hours later and having just left the woods, crashing out and going back to sleep. And it developed a love for the wilderness for me, in all honesty.
No, that's great. I have to say, I'm a big glamper. I spent 2 years homeless. So like I've camped. I have really camped on here, right? So I have learned to enjoy a bed, a shower, a hot shower. But I do love going out for small things. I took my daughter camping this summer for the first time. And so her cousins got to stay in the cabin. And so every night we would go over. So we kind of glamped, right? We had a shower. It was mini camping. And she was just like, why are we in a tent?
Here's a tip. One of the things that I used to hate about sleeping in a tent was sleeping on the ground, because I sleep on my side and it always hurt here and it always hurt on my hip bone. If you can buy yourself a good size sleeping pad, one that's like 4 inches thick, it keeps you off the ground. It actually does cushion you like a little thin mattress. And that was a big difference for me.
That's an essential. So you have to add that in your essential pack, some type of blow up mattress.
Yeah.
All right. So when did on the fishing, right? So I see that in a lot of your videos, you're directly catching food from fishing, stuff like that. What are some tips you can give? Because I love to fish. I find I'm much more successful deep sea fishing. Lake fishing, I'm horrible. I can't seem to really catch a fish. So what could I do if I'm out there? Like what special bait, or what would I be looking at doing?
One of the things to remember is that when you're talking about some of these national parks and these national wildernesses, you're not even allowed to use live bait. So you have to use a lure or a fly. Personally, I have grown up fishing in little streams for brook trout and rainbows and salmon. So I was always really successful with a spinner, just a little tiny MEPS spinner. You throw it out there with a bait caster and you reel it back in. And the places that I'm going to, you can catch 10 fish a day pretty much without a problem. But I don't really like to spend that much time, because there's so much other great stuff to do. It's fishing. And at Huckleberry Lake, I was able to go out and catch 1 or 2 fish in 20 minutes. And that was enough for a meal. And then you mix that fried fish up with a dehydrated meal, and you come up with a stewed fish meal that is the full pan, and that is enough to sustain me with my breakfast and whatever else I might snack on along the way.
Okay, all right, nice. What about water? Do you have to carry water? We go on these trips, and I don't think there's a water fountain. You can drink out of the lake.
No, there's not, and there's a tremendous amount of safety that has to go into water if you are unaware of what good water is. There are filters, and there are boiling methods, and there are iodine taps. There are many ways to purify your water. And you want to make sure that as you're planning your trip, that you have water in the strategic areas where you're able to resupply. However, in my case, I am in the mountains and the water is right there, and there are no beaver dams and there are no cattle yards. So I don't really process my water unless I'm on the trail where I
Okay.
feel like there might be some stagnant water that I have to drink that has been used by the animals. Then I go ahead and I use a little filter to process my water. But
Okay.
normally I just dip my bucket in and drink right out of the lake.
All right. So another essential water filter. Okay. So I'm
Water
like, I'm
filter.
keeping
Yes.
these in my
Yes.
head,
All right.
unless
That's
you're in the
fair.
middle of nowhere, and then it's okay.
Yeah.
All right. What was the scariest moment you've ever had while camping?
Oh, I've had some. I've had some really scary moments. One year I went out and I was hiking up the trail, and it had been, I was at like 8,000 feet, and it had been a really hard winter the year before. And so there was still snow. I'm out there, it's July 14th or so, and there's still 4 feet of snow, and you can't see the trail when there's 4 feet of snow. So you're just trying to figure out what the pathway might be based on the cutting of the logs and how the trail seems to meander. And there was a tree that had fallen over the trail, and I'm trudging uphill. And when you're doing this, you're just so damn exhausted. You've got a 70-pound pack. You're going uphill. You've been going uphill for hours. And I was just not thinking clearly, and I grabbed this tree limb that was right there as a handle, and I began to step over the tree. And as I began to step over the tree, it shifted towards me. And now this great big tree that's like this big around is starting to roll towards me down the
Oh
hill.
my
And
God.
I'm in the middle of nowhere. I mean, I'm 25 miles from the nearest person probably at this point. And I almost went over the cliff with the tree.
Oh my
And
gosh.
that was eye-opening.
Yeah, that's scary. So I think a lot. Like I do love, hiking. And I like the glamping camping, right, I have to
Yeah.
admit, but I love hiking. I'm a huge fan of hiking. I grew up in the Mount Baldy, mountains, and that mountain's very dangerous. I mean, Julian
Can be.
Assange was just found. Unfortunately, he lost his life in those mountain ranges. Grew up my whole life in there, so I was raised ultra aware at how dangerous on a seemingly normal bright day how fast it gets dark.
Yeah.
We don't realize how dark is when there's no light. Like I can say, it's like dark is dark,
Dark,
like
dark, dark.
real dark, right? What can I also pack in my little backpack, right? About if I find myself in a position, luckily you survived, right? Let's say something tragic had happened, you broke a leg, you're out there, you can't do. Is there, I know there's certain apps, but if your phone's not working, like how does that work to try to get help if you are hurt in a place that doesn't have any internet?
That's a loaded question. So I like to be by myself, and I find areas to camp that are going to have minimal amounts of people. However, throughout all these wildernesses, especially in the western areas, you have very distinct, well-maintained trails. In the event that you were going to break your leg and you needed to get help, the only thing you could really do would be able to drag yourself to a trail and hope that you could survive until the next person passes it over the next couple of days. There's just not a whole
Wow.
lot. You could possibly carry a satellite phone, but that's going to be what, $5,000?
Yeah.
For somebody
Okay.
that's pretty much out of reach for a lot of us, you know?
Yeah, because that's why I kept hearing about satellite phones. And I'm like, how come I'm like, why does my phone not have something like that? Because it goes out and it makes sense. It's an actual different
Right.
phone. I was
You don't
thinking it
have
was some
cell
kind of cool app.
towers, right?
Yeah.
It has to
Okay.
bounce all the way off the satellites. But
Oh, wow.
yeah, I have seen search and rescue come in a couple of times over the years that I've been going up to the Sierra Nevadas and pick people up. So somebody out there is making contact. And I believe that
Mhm.
the rangers that are out there maintaining the trails and maintaining the cabins probably have radios that they're able to access to call in for people like that. Because you're really not that far from civilization. It's just really difficult to get to.
What about like a red flare or something? Not that I have a flare gun, but like,
Red flare is
would
only
that
going
even
to,
work?
it's line of sight and you're in the mountains. If there's
Okay.
nobody in that valley right there, when you shoot that thing 1,000 feet high, it's not going to be seen
Doesn't
over the
matter.
next ridge.
So pray and hope.
Pray and hope. Pray
And
and
be
hope
agile
that you
on
get
your
there.
feet. Jump over those logs.
But preparation, I mean, training and being
Yeah.
aware of your environment and being safe, realizing what's going on if you're getting tired and hiking and it's getting dark, it's time to stop. And when you're so exhausted that you can't put one foot in front of the other, take a rest. You know, you
Yeah.
want to take care of yourself. You're in an environment where you're the only thing that's going to keep you alive. So try to do that.
Yeah, right. Darwinism at its finest, right? It's
Yeah.
like, how smart are you? I have this clip I want to play that I thought I know you had talked about a lot about you hit your 50s, right? And you're just like, what is my meaning of life? Like what is the fact here? And one thing that I've been struggling a lot with too, like I hit 40 and I'm here and I'm kind of like, all right. I mean, I feel young and vibrant and that's I don't feel old, right? I definitely don't
Right.
look old. Thank you very much. My Botox doctor. No, but I struggle with like finding joy, right? Finding that stuff. And I came across this clip which I want to play because I thought it was really cool.
One of my mottos is find your joy. Without your joy, what are you? For me, this is my joy. Sitting here in the water on a bright summer day, getting ready to take a swim, and then once I cool down, step into my really hot tent where I'll be all nice and comfortable because I'll be cold, then the tent will be hot, and we will even out each other. I'll take a
All right, that clip itself brings me joy. I love just how happy you seem in all your clips, right? And not like a false happiness, like putting on a happiness, right? But like a
Right.
genuine. I'm really happy at this moment in this time at this place, and where. I mean, obviously you're out camping; it's beautiful, so you can find joy there. But like, what do you do in the city? What do you do back here in LA when you can't get away?
Okay, so I work in the outskirts of the entertainment industry. In all honesty, I work as a stage manager and a production manager, and I do a lot of theater and I do a lot of special events. And you deal with a lot of people. And when you're talking about people, you're talking about egos, you're talking about stresses. It's so important to them. You're there to help them. But in helping them, you have to be invested in them. And that can be really stressful sometimes. Regardless of how that impacts me, you are looking to make sure that your efforts are appreciated by the audience for the face of the production, for the face of the performer. You don't get a chance to enjoy your efforts. And that can wear on you. And you had talked about how much you love hiking. And when you get out there just by yourself on the trail, and it doesn't have to be far from home, it can even be on the road in the middle of a morning run. It's that foggy day and everything's all quiet, and you're just out there by yourself, enjoying the moment and enjoying your efforts. There's a catharsis that happens where you just find a space in your heart to enjoy that moment, to enjoy what you enjoy doing. And I'm not trying to talk in circles because it's a different level. Of course, you're going out to run because you like to run, but in experiencing that this time, perhaps there's a little extra special thing in there, and that's sort of what I'm going for. I want people to realize. You look at television, especially outdoor content right now. You see a lot of Bear Grylls survival or survival of the fittest, or here's the scenario: you're lost in the middle of the desert.
Yeah, I'm not eating bugs. So I see those. I'm like, I'm gonna die. I can't eat a cockroach.
Exactly.
Sorry, I can't.
So what I really wanted to do was show people it doesn't have to be dangerous. That if you love it, do it. I love it. I truly enjoy being out there by myself, hunting and fishing. And this doesn't have to be something that's going to be dangerous. Difficult? Yeah, I get that. And perhaps it's going to be something that's a little bit daunting, but getting yourself out of your own comfort zone is a good thing. Testing yourself, even if it is just that 1 mile for that one weekend with your young child, it gets them a little bit wider exposure to the world. There's a lot of stuff out there that you might enjoy that you've never done. So go try it.
And one thing I have to say is I just got into working out with music because I work in a gym in the morning, but before that I never did. I have to say working out with music makes it easier. But when I go out hiking, I am like blown away that people have a boombox.
I know.
And like first off, I hate you. Anybody who has a boombox and you're on the trail, I legitimately hate you.
I do too.
Put your earbuds on, right? Because
Exactly,
you were ruining my zen, my spiritualness. I mean, obviously, I'm around other people. I'm not by myself for 30 days. I don't have to worry about boomboxes.
Right.
But I really am floored that people can't just put technology down and be with their breath.
Okay, and I'll give you that because I agree with you 100%. There is something for me that I love to bond with nature and the orchestra of sounds that nature provides. But you hike your own hike. If you want to go out there with a boombox and be a dick to everybody else around you, that's okay. I'm not going to hike with you, all right? And I'm not going to camp with you, all right? But I still want you to
get out
and do.
I do. Okay,
I
do say that. I tell my clients, I was like, I'd rather you hiking than not.
Right.
And I have learned to hike in places that don't have people.
Yes,
because it ruins my zen.
It does.
But I do agree. I think just getting out and moving the body. We live in a society, especially if you're in a city, where it's just go, go, go. It's sit at a desk all day, And if you go to work out, you're jamming in as much as possible in a small amount of time and then falling asleep and doing it all over again. And there's no real cathartic release in a sense that we can get from being outside for a walk, just in the middle of your lunch break, right? Instead of sitting on Facebook or Instagram, unless you're watching our shows, then that's okay. But if you're not doing that, you should be outside and walk the block, right? I think that helps us. But I do, one of the nice things I've seen amongst my friends, myself, my clients that I help with also in the mornings is we are searching for joy.
Yeah.
Right. It's not so much, obviously, we want our bills paid. We want money. We want all this, but really we want joy and what that means in our life.
And a lot of us don't know what joy is for us because we think that by paying our bills and having our lives, that is supposed to be joyful. And when somebody, and I tend to pose the question to people, what is your joy? They're lost with thought, trying to come up with something that they find joyful, an act or something that brings them joy because they've been without it for so long. And for me, it tends to lead to an empty and lonely life. I mean, people around us all the time, they're going to bring us laughter, they're going to bring us some disagreements, and they're going to bring us anger. But people in our interaction, there is joy there as well. But what do you do for you that's going to bring you joy?
Woo! On that note, I love it. Greg, thank you. So where can our listeners find your vodcast? Where can they go to watch?
All right. The Backcountry Vagabond is a YouTube channel. I've got currently 27 episodes up. I did one for every day that I was out. So I've got 3 episodes left in this first season. And I'd love to have you guys go over there and take a look at some of the stuff that's going on. And before I go, now I want to go ahead and acknowledge a couple of people. Crystal Tobias, who's been instrumental in me getting out my shorts and bringing me up to speed on the technical aspects of it. And Roman Kabalich, who's been an audio genius for me. And Brian Porter, who wrote and composed the theme song for the Backcountry Vagabond. And now I can't even think about it without that song going through my head. So I'd like to thank those 3 people because they were really important. And, I wouldn't be here really. It wouldn't be this good if it wasn't for them.
It's true. I think in everything, it's collaboration. I
It
mean, I
is.
think about right now, I'm jumping off on my own show. I couldn't have done it without first linking up with Chris Collins,
Yep.
be a co-host on his show, having, producer Paul Stewart Graham, having Jody, oh my God, Mahler, my saving
Hey,
grace.
Jody. Nice to see
Honestly,
you.
yes, Jody, if it wasn't for you, there would be no me. And I think that kind of goes back to that joy, right?
Yeah.
The network, the interactions, who we have in our life will help us aspire to our dreams,
Yeah.
right? Will help us aspire to it.
And there's something to be said. You mentioned some of the steps that have gotten you to this point for you. And let's not ignore that with all of us, because we may have been through a bad divorce or had a bad upbringing or had something really horrifying come down crashing on us. But if we've made it to this point, if we found a way to continue strong, and there's even the slightest flicker of light at the end of the tunnel, that journey has made you here, led you here, made you who you are. What can you do with it now? Find your joy.
Yeah, love it. Well, Greg, thank you so much for coming on. And don't forget, definitely find him on his YouTube channel, The Backcountry Vagabond. He's also on Instagram and Facebook. So don't forget to like him and follow him there. Funny stories on the Insta. I'm an Instagram follower, so
Thank you.
dig it. But once again, Greg, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you.
And again, thank you for having me.
Wonderful, joyful day.
Later, everyone.
Bye, thank you. And if you like what you're listening to, please love, like, and subscribe. And stay tuned. There is more left on the Marissa Pitts Show.